A man is lying on his back in the dark. He has been lying there for 3,670,000 years. His arms are still raised above his head, frozen in the last motion his body ever made. And for decades, no one on Earth knew he was there. Most people believe the story of human origins is written in bones we've already found. Fossils in glass cases, faces on textbook covers, a tidy timeline, agreed upon, settled. That is not what happened. Because deep inside a cave system in South Africa, encased in rock so hard it had to be chipped away one grain at a time, something was waiting. Something that would force scientists to rewrite what they thought they understood about the moment we became us. In 1994, in a cave called Sterkfontein, a researcher named Ron Clark was sorting through boxes of bone fragments that had been sitting, forgotten, in a university storeroom for years. Labeled, cataloged, ignored. He found 4 small bones. Foot bones. They didn't belong to any cataloged specimen. They belonged to something else entirely. Something still buried. Most people assume a discovery like this happens in a single moment. A shovel strikes something hard. A brush reveals a skull. The cameras arrive. That is not what happened here. What happened here took 20 years. Clark sent 2 colleagues into the cave to search the exact spot where those bones might have originally fallen. In near total darkness, using only a flashlight, they scanned the walls of an underground chamber that hadn't seen daylight in millions of years. They found the matching bones, still embedded in rock, still part of a body. And then the real work began. Not excavation in the way people imagine it, with brushes and sunlight and open sky, but something closer to surgery performed inside a mountain. Every fragment of stone had to be removed by hand, millimeter by millimeter, without damaging what lay beneath. The skeleton was not sitting in soil. It was locked inside breccia, a natural cement of stone and mineral that had hardened around the body like a fist closing slowly over 100,000 centuries. It would take until 2017 for the world to see him properly. They called him Littlefoot, not because he was small, because of those 4 bones that started it all. His scientific name is STW573, but names like that don't carry the weight of what he actually is. He is, according to the dating team's uranium-lead analysis, roughly 3.67 million years old. Older than Lucy. Older than almost anything else this complete. And here is where the ground beneath the story starts to shift. Most people assume older fossils are more fragmented. Smaller, sadder. A shard of skull, a broken jaw, a few teeth scattered like punctuation marks in an unfinished sentence. Littlefoot is nearly the opposite. He is one of the most complete early hominin skeletons ever recovered on Earth. Skull, spine, pelvis, arms, legs, almost all still connected, almost all still whole. A near-complete body from a time before recorded time, before agriculture, before fire was mastered, before language as we know it existed in any recognizable form. He was already there. Researchers believe he may have fallen into the cave system, through a vertical shaft in the dark, likely to his death. His arm bones suggest he may have tried to break his fall. Picture that for a moment. An individual, alive, aware, afraid, reaching out instinctively as gravity pulled him downward into a darkness he could not have understood. That instinct, the reflex to protect the body even in the final seconds of a fall, is not unique to him. It is ours. It has always been ours, which means somewhere, inside an act that ended a life nearly 4 million years ago, there is a motion your own body would still make today. This is where the story stops being about one skeleton and starts becoming something larger. Because Littlefoot belonged to a genus called Australopithecus, the same broad branch of the family tree that includes Lucy, discovered decades earlier in Ethiopia. For years, Lucy was treated as close to the beginning, a near origin point, the oldest meaningful ancestor most people had heard of. Littlefoot is older, more complete, and found in a different region of the continent entirely, which raises an uncomfortable, quietly enormous question. If the story of our origins already had to be rewritten once, what else is still buried, still waiting, still filed away in some forgotten storeroom, unrecognized for what it is? Scientists still debate exactly where Littlefoot fits on the family tree, whether he represents a direct ancestor, a cousin lineage, or a species entirely separate from the branch that eventually led to us. The data cannot fully resolve it, not yet. But that uncertainty is not a weakness in the story. It is the story, because it means the picture of human origins is not a finished painting hanging safely in a museum. It is still wet, still being painted. And every few years, a new brushstroke forces the entire composition to be reconsidered. Consider what his skeleton actually preserves. His leg bones suggest he could walk upright on 2 feet across open ground. His arm bones suggest he could still climb, still move through trees the way a species not yet fully committed to the ground below might move. He was not one thing. He was a body caught between 2 ways of surviving, between the trees that had kept his ancestors alive for millions of years and the ground that would eventually belong to us. That in-between state is not a footnote. It is the entire story of becoming human, contained in the architecture of a single skeleton. We were never one thing all at once. We were always, at every stage, something transitional, something still becoming. There is something quietly unsettling in that realization. We tend to imagine evolution as a ladder, ape at the bottom, human at the top, a clean, upward line. That is not what happened. It has never been what happened. It was branches, dead ends, bodies caught halfway between 2 futures, most of which would never arrive. Littlefoot represents one of those branches, a life lived fully, entirely, without any knowledge that it was a chapter in a story that would take another 3.5 million years to produce something capable of digging him back out of the dark and asking what he meant. He didn't know he was ancestral. He didn't know he was significant. He was simply alive, in a body that worked well enough to survive, until the day it didn't. And now his bones lie in a research facility, studied under lights he could never have imagined, by minds shaped by the very evolutionary process his own skeleton helped set in motion. There is a strange symmetry in that. The species that emerged from bodies like his is now the only species on Earth capable of turning back around, reaching into the dark and asking, "What were you? What did you feel? What did you fear in the last seconds before the fall?" We may never fully know. But somewhere inside every human skeleton that has ever stood upright, walked across open ground, and reached out instinctively to break a fall, there is an echo of a body that fell first, 3,670,000 years ago, into a cave in South Africa, and simply never got back up. He did not know he was the beginning of anything. Perhaps nothing that becomes a beginning ever does. Like and subscribe. See you in the next.